Take a slow breath in. Let your shoulders drop as you imagine the sun sinking behind distant sand dunes. Tonight, we drift far back in time to ancient Egypt, where the mighty pharaohs ruled under the watchful eyes of countless gods. But you are not the ruler. Instead, you are one of the countless invisible souls serving behind the palace walls. Together, we'll wander through the hidden chambers, the silent corridors, the courtyards where gossip drifts like incense out as you listen. Feel free to let your mind drift, to sink deeper into this ancient world until the present melts away. If you're still awake as dawn approaches, tell us, where are you listening from tonight? Leave a gentle comment below, and don't forget to share your favorite piece of forgotten history. Now, take another breath. Let's begin. Imagine again. Your eyelids peel open to a darkness that hums with the breath of a Nile. The thin cotton cloth covering your body sticks to your skin. The smell of warm reeds and yesterday's sweat hangs in the air. You're not alone in the small mud-brick servants' quarters. You hear the soft snores of others, the scratch of mice searching for crumbs, the distant hiss of wind through the papyrus reeds outside. You sit up. Your back cracks. You wish, for just a moment, that you could lie back down, but the palace steward will be here soon. You splash your face from the clay water jar near the door. The water is cool but muddy, and you wipe your skin with a frayed piece of linen that still smells of fish oil from its previous life. Outside, the first purple light of dawn crawls over the palace walls. You tie your hair back with a strip of woven rushes. You have no jewelry, no paint for your eyes. Those luxuries belong to the royal women. You just watch them from the shadows when you sweep the corridors, catching glimpses of ivory bangles and coal-lined stairs. Your first task is the water run. You balance 2 heavy clay jars on a yoke across your shoulders, your bare feet sinking into the damp earth as you tread down to the riverbank. The Nile is the lifeline of the pharaoh, but to you, it's just another burden. Fishermen's boats bob in the early light. Children already splash in the shallows. You envy their laughter. There's no laughter waiting for you. Back up the palace steps, your arms burn. You pass through the servants' gate, eyes downcast so you do not catch the gaze of the noble scribes. You slip through narrow hallways. Behind the grand columns, you see carved lotus flowers and limestone walls, painted gods watching you with cold eyes, as if to remind you, you are small. Next come the floors, always the floors. Limestone slabs must be swept and washed before the pharaoh's sandals touch them. If a single crumb lingers when the steward inspects your work, the reed switch will kiss your shoulders. Once the floors gleam, you carry baskets to the royal kitchen. The kitchen is alive with smoke, the crackle of embers under clay ovens. You? Clean fish, scale after scale flicking onto your skin. You pluck feathers from a goose that will be roasted for the noble's midday meal. Your own meal will be coarse barley bread, a handful of dates if you're lucky, eaten sitting cross-legged in a corner. Sometimes you overhear gossip, the scribes muttering about the pharaoh's latest decree, the cooks whispering about who has fallen out of favor. You know better than to repeat it. Servants who speak too much find themselves hauling stones on the quarries instead of sleeping under the palace roof in the evening. You tend to the lamps. You refill them with oil pressed from castor beans, trim the wicks. The flicker of flames dances on painted walls that tell stories of gods, battles, eternal life. You wonder if your name will survive, if anyone will remember you when your bones lie under desert sands. You sink to your mat, your skin sticky with sweat and clay dust. The moonlight glows through the reed screen, casting bars of silver across the room. Your eyes grow heavy. You know tomorrow will be the same chores, the same sun, the same whip if you falter. You dream of the Nile, of the river carrying you far from the palace walls, to a quiet place where your hands can rest, where the gods do not watch so closely, where the Pharaoh's voice cannot command your every breath. And yet, dawn will come again. You will wake to serve. You always wake to serve. Asterisk. Imagine now you are no longer the lowly water bearer. Instead, picture yourself wrapped in crisp linen, an ivory writing palette tucked beneath your arm, stepping softly into the hallowed halls of Pharaoh's court. You are a vizier, the highest official beneath the living god king himself. Yet, for all the gold and the whispered reverence, life in this role is not the untroubled existence the tomb murals would have you believe. The court is alive with murmurings, petitions, and backhanded promises. Each day dawns with new scrolls to decipher, taxes to be collected from farmers whose fields wither under the relentless sun, grain to be weighed, scribes to supervise, and priests to placate. Your chambers may be cool, shaded by thick walls of stone, but your mind is never at rest. One slip of the reed pen, one column of hieroglyphs out of place, and your name could be struck from memory, your family's fortunes erased like ink from fresh papyrus. So you tread carefully across reed mats, greet petitioners with polite nods, weigh every word before it leaves your lips. At dusk, you might be called to the inner sanctum, summoned to interpret dreams or settle disputes between noble houses. By torchlight, you study the shifting shadows that flicker across the carved faces of gods who watch your every move. Do they guard you, or wait for your mistakes? Some nights, the vizier's bed feels harder than any laborer's straw mat. A servant of the Pharaoh you may be, but the greatest burden is not the stone block or the water jar. It is the weight of secrets, of debts owed and favors feared. So let your mind wander through the tiled corridors of the palace, past the Jiao, statues of falcon gods and jackal-headed protectors. Breathe in the scent of incense drifting from bronze burners. Hear the scratch of the stylus on parchment, the soft footsteps of a dozen scribes who would be you if they could. And as you close your eyes, remind yourself, the higher you rise. In Pharaoh's court, the longer your shadow grows behind you. Asterisk, take a slow breath. Imagine you are now neither water-bearer nor vizier, but something far more elusive. An archaeologist of the early 20th century, lantern in hand, standing at the threshold of a passage untouched for 3,000 years. The air tastes dry and stale, thick with the silence of centuries. This is the hidden tomb of a royal servant, a man whose name has been half erased from temple walls, yet whose burial remains untouched beneath the dunes. You and your team lower yourselves step by careful step into the shaft. Flickering lamplight dances across painted walls, faded scenes of harvests, offerings, hunting trips along the Nile's grassy banks. You run your fingers over hieroglyphs that speak of offerings given, debts repaid, and the eternal journey toward the field of reeds. In this hush, you realize that even a humble servant sought immortality through careful ritual. Here, he would dwell forever beside jars of barley, alabaster ointment pots, and a simple wooden statue of Osiris. Yet the mystery lies deeper. There are signs this tomb was hidden on purpose. A false door carved with prayers. A sealed niche that the ancient priests hoped would never be found by tomb robbers or vengeful rivals. You feel the shift in the dry air, a hiss of sand falling from an unseen crack above. The ancient workers who carved these chambers did so under torchlight, cramped for air, and bent over chisel and hammer for hours at a time. Their sweat stained the limestone. Their laughter and curses echo still, if you listen closely. Somewhere, within the chamber, tucked into a dusty corner, you find a small clay tablet, its symbols barely legible. It hints at a second burial chamber, deeper still, where secrets were sealed away, stories of betrayal, misused power, or a ritual gone wrong. No one alive can say for certain. So, You sit back on your heels, lantern casting long shadows, the ancient hush wrapping you like linen. In this tomb, a forgotten servant's tale is half told, a reminder that every life, no matter how small in the eyes of the living Pharaoh, leaves whispers behind in stone and sand. Asterisk, imagine now, drifting through the heavy doors of the Pharaoh's palace into a world far removed from the toil of water-bearers and tomb workers. Here, the air is sweet with lotus oil. Sunlight filters through fine linen draperies that sway with the breeze from the Nile. The floors are polished alabaster, cool beneath sand-dusted feet. Inside these chambers, the royal family lives in a rhythm that would seem unthinkable to a servant hauling clay pots through the courtyard. A princess reclines on a carved ebony chair, servants fanning her with palm fronds. A young prince, barely 6, giggles as a pet monkey scampers across mosaic tiles. Priests drift in and out, whispering prayers, sprinkling cool water onto fragrant rush mats. But this comfort is not without its chains. Even the Pharaoh's closest kin are bound by ceremony. Every bite of honeyed cake, every sip of pomegranate. Wine is ritual, blessed by priests, offered first to statues of the gods before lips touch golden goblets. The royal wives and concubines wear layers of jewelry heavy enough to leave impressions on bare skin, their necks adorned with gold collars, hair perfumed and coiled into elaborate styles each dawn. A hush hangs over the palace. Conversations are careful. A misstep, a rumor. They can undo a life of favor. Servants glide like shadows, eyes downcast. For them, a slip of the tongue might mean banishment or worse. Beyond the lavish courtyards, the Pharaoh's closest advisors hold secret councils. Under moonlight, scribes scratch delicate records onto papyrus. Trade agreements, earth omens, the reading of stars. You can almost hear the soft crackle of the reed brush, the rustle of silk as courtiers drift between rooms to share whispers that could shape the kingdom. And yet, despite all this luxury, there's unease. Plots brew like a sandstorm on the horizon. Jealous siblings, ambitious. Generals, foreign envoys seeking favor. For all the rich linens and perfumed baths, there is no true rest behind these carved stone walls. So, imagine yourself standing just beyond the threshold, seeing both the shimmering wealth and the invisible burdens. The Pharaoh's servants, his family, his priests, each trapped in a golden cage of power, fear, and fragile alliances. Breathe out now, as the night breeze brushes the papyrus screens. Let this world slip gently into the hush of your dreams, where gold glitters faintly under starlight, and secrets lie coiled beneath every alabaster floor. Asterisk, take a slow breath. Picture yourself stepping softly across the smooth, cool stone floor of a sacred temple complex along the banks of the Nile. Dawn's pale light filters through high stone windows, catching motes of dust that drift lazily in the hush. The scent of burning incense, resinous, slightly sweet, curls through the corridors. Clinging to your linen robe, you are one of the countless unseen temple maidens, young girls chosen for quiet tasks that keep this vast, echoing sanctuary immaculate. Your feet, bare on the cold floor, leave faint prints as you carry a basket of lotus blossoms to the innermost sanctuary. Each step must be measured, steady, respectful of the god whose statue gazes out with eyes of lapis and gold. Every morning begins like this. You rise before the sun, splash your face with river water drawn by other servants before dawn, and slip into the same thin linen wrap you scrubbed yesterday by hand. Your hair is bound back with a reed tie. A bronze mirror caught your reflection. Once wide eyes, thin shoulders, a sense of being small in halls built for giants. Your duties seem simple, but they are endless. You sweep the floor with a palm frond broom, moving in slow circles, so as not to stir too much dust into the incense. Smoke. You polish votive offerings, bowls, small amulets, until they gleam in the flickering torchlight. The priests move past you like shadows, their sandals whispering, heads shaved smooth, voices murmuring prayers you cannot speak aloud. Sometimes you carry baskets of flowers to the altars. White lotus, blue lotus, delicate reeds plucked from marsh edges. The water jars that feed these blossoms come from miles away. Another maiden must carry them in clay pots balanced on her shoulders, the Nile's mud caking her feet. You never speak of these tasks. You do them because it is what you were brought here to do. There is comfort, in a way, in the repetition. The hush of the temple walls swallows your thoughts, your worries about your family outside the temple, your aching arms. Day fades into night as oil lamps are lit, fat bowls of flickering flame casting long shadows that make the carved gods seem to shift and breathe dot in this place. You are invisible, yet you are vital. The offerings must be fresh. The altars must be pure. Floors must gleam for the gods' daily procession. If you fail, it is you who will bear the blame. Whispered scolds, an extra burden, fewer rations, a harder bed in the straw-packed chamber behind the shrine dot, and so you sweep, polish, tend, and slip away when the day is done, leaving behind only the faint trace of sandalwood smoke, a scattering of fallen petals, and the hush that echoes in the stone. Your heartbeat slows with the hush. You drift further, wrapped in the timeless rhythm of lives long forgotten. Asterisk, take a slow, gentle breath. Now, imagine yourself standing barefoot on the baked clay ground of a sunlit workyard, somewhere near the edge of the Nile floodplain. The dawn haze has burned away, and already the warmth of the desert creeps up through the soles of your feet. You are a humble servant, a maker of bricks. There is no shade here, just the wide, endless expanse of dust and river mud. All around you, rows upon rows of half-dried bricks lie baking beneath the blinding sun, like small square offerings to the relentless sky. You squat beside a shallow pit, knees bent, back hunched. Each day begins the same. Water drawn from a muddy irrigation canal. Fine silt and straw mixed in by hand. Your fingers push through the cold muck, and the grit of tiny stones scratches your palms. Straw stiffens the mixture, binding the clay, so the bricks hold their shape. Without it, they would crumble at the first heat of the day. It's not silent here. In the distance, you hear the creak of wooden buckets and the splash of water. Other laborers laugh, cough, or argue over bundles of reeds. Somewhere, a supervisor barks an order you can't quite hear. The smell is damp and earthen, wet mud, the faint sweetness of straw, the dry tongue of the desert beyond. When the clay is just right, you lift a wooden mold and press it into the slop. With a practiced motion, you smooth the top with your palm, scraping away excess. And the mold is lifted, leaving behind a perfect brick. You place it on the drying rows, each one aligned with the next like soldiers in formation. There is an art to this rhythm. Shape, lift, pat, align. The days stretch on, hours slipping away in the hum of crickets, the cry of birds overhead. The sun climbs mercilessly, beads of sweat gathering under your linen head wrap, trickling down your neck to soak the dusty cloth tied around your waist. Bricks are life here. They will become walls for the grand estates of nobles, massive temples. To the gods, storage granaries that guard the precious grains you'll never own. Yet your name will not be carved on these walls. Your back may bend, your hands may crack, but your mark will fade into the mud that built kingdoms. As the sun dips lower, you and the others gather up the dried bricks, stacking them into neat piles. Dust sticks to your damp skin. The scent shifts. from wet clay to warm earth as the heat releases its hold on the day. The air feels lighter, though your limbs remain heavy. Sometimes you imagine a life beyond the pit, maybe carrying water jugs to the temple, or cooking for scribes, or tending to sacred animals. Yet each role comes with its own weight. The bricks are honest in their burden. You shape them, and they shape you. As dusk comes, the low thud of bricks being stacked becomes the only sound that matters. In the distance, the Nile glimmers like a silver snake, winding its way toward fields of grain and houses you will never enter. The scent of cooking fires drifts from somewhere unseen, mingling with the dry, dusty sweetness of straw. Take one last slow look at the rows you have made today, the small monuments beneath your calloused hands. Feel the warmth of the ground, still radiating up through your feet as the last light fades. Another day's worth of walls for someone else's tomorrow. When you finally stand, your body aches in every joint. But there is a strange peace in this ache, a quiet rhythm to a life shaped by mud, sweat, and sun. Breathe out. Let the dust settle. Let the hum of the bricks lull you further into rest, imagining the slow heartbeat of a world built brick, by hands just like yours. Take another gentle breath in. Let your shoulders drop and picture yourself stepping from the brickyard's dusty plain to a narrow path that hugs the green fringe of the Nile's floodplain. Here, your world is the slow, steady movement of feet along packed earth, balancing precious water drawn from the river's restless flow. In this life, you are a water carrier, one of countless servants whose days begin long before the sun appears, when the sky is a thin violet smear over the black silhouette of palm fronds. Your tools are simple: 2 clay jars, suspended from a pole that rests across your shoulders, your bare feet pressing grooves into the path you tread, so often you could follow it blindfolded. The Nile is close enough to hear the soft lap of water against reeds, the rustle of crocodiles slipping through shallows you pray to avoid. You kneel at the bank, dipping each jar carefully to fill it to the brim, mindful not to spill too much. The rope that binds the jars creaks under the weight, your shoulders straining from the first moment you stand. As you begin your walk back, the jars sway gently, sloshing cool water onto your ankles. The path is alive with others like you, boys, young men, old men bent double with the same burden. They pass one another with nods and weary greetings, each focused on their own endless loop from river to house, field, or temple. The morning air is sweet with the scent of damp earth and blooming lotus flowers that drift by in the shallows. Overhead, herons cry out, their pale wings flapping against a cloudless sky. You feel the sun on your neck, faint at first, but growing stronger with every step. The rope bites into your skin, but you do not shift it. It's better to keep walking than to stop and feel the ache settle into your bones. Sometimes, a passing nobleman's barge glides along the Nile's calm surface, its painted prow glinting with gold leaf. You catch the faint melody of flutes and drums drifting from its deck, a reminder of a life that will never be yours. But you turn your eyes back to the path, keeping your mind on each careful step. As you reach the village or estate, you slip through narrow lanes lined with mud brick houses. Children dash past, giggling, their small feet caked with dust. Dogs bark, geese flap and hiss, but you keep your balance steady. Jars must not tip, water must not spill. At the master's courtyard, you bend low, carefully pouring the water into storage jars that stand taller than your waist. The overseer might watch you, lips pressed into a thin line, counting how many trips you've made today. There are no words of thanks, just a nod, a gesture to hurry back to the river for another load. On your return, the path is hotter now. The clay beneath your feet is warm, almost burning. You pass the same trees, the same thorny bushes alive with the buzz of insects. Your mind drifts in the rhythm of your steps. Left foot, right foot, the faint clink of pottery with each sway dot as the day fades. Your shadow stretches long behind you, and the Nile glows with the last fire of the setting sun. You know tomorrow will be the same. Water will always be needed to drink, to cook, to wash away the dust of lives like yours. Your feet will follow this path until you are too old to lift the jars, and then someone younger will carry them for you. Take a slow breath out now. Feel the river breeze on your face, the rope rough on your shoulders, the steady drumbeat of footsteps on earth. Let the endless walk lull you deeper into rest, a slow, steady journey along the water's edge, where the hush of reeds whispers you softly toward sleep. Asterisk, settle your mind as the Nile fades behind you. Now, slip into the dim, warm shadows of an ancient Egyptian kitchen, a low, smoky room where the air is thick with the scent of stewing grains and singed herbs dot in this life. You are the cook, a servant entrusted with feeding, not just the master and his family, but the priests, the scribes, the overseers, and sometimes the household gods themselves. Your day begins before dawn, when the hearth is only a circle of pale embers glowing under ash. You bend low, coaxing sparks to life with careful puffs of breath, feeding dry twigs until the flames catch and dance. The clay oven squats in one corner, blackened with years of smoke. Around it, baskets of lentils, barley, onions, and garlic wait their turn. You move in a quiet rhythm, slicing, grinding, pounding spices with a smooth stone mortar. Each motion has been done so many times that your hands remember it, even when your thoughts drift to other worries. Smoke curls up toward the reed thatch overhead, drifting into your eyes until they water. You squint through it, stirring a bubbling pot with a long wooden ladle. The stew inside is thick with lentils, flavored with coriander and a pinch of precious salt. You taste it on the tip of your tongue, just enough to know it is ready. Nothing more, or the overseer might accuse you of stealing. Asterisk. Let the warmth of the cook's hearth drift away now. Let the scent of stewing lentils fade from your mind. Imagine instead the hush of the temple courtyard at first light, when the rising sun spills its soft glow across smooth limestone. Now, you are a sweeper in service to the gods. Your broom is a bundle of dried reeds bound tight with rough twine. You clutch it in calloused hands as you begin your work, a low rhythmic brushing of sand and dust across the polished stones. Each stroke echoes softly between the towering columns that stretch toward the sky. The temple is half asleep at this hour. High priests murmur incantations deep inside, their voices like faraway wind. The statues of the gods stand massive and unblinking, carved from black granite that gleams when the sun touches it. You keep your eyes low, respectful, reverent, careful not to meet the gaze of a deity that might see right through your mortal worries. Dust gathers so quickly here. The desert creeps in on dry winds, leaving a fine grit that settles in corners, clings to sandals, catches in your throat. Your broom dances over it, flicking it into neat piles that you gather with a palm frond fan. It is quiet work, but your thoughts hum as steady as your sweeping. Sometimes you wonder if the gods notice you, a tiny speck moving among their altars. An incense. But then you remember, purity is everything here. Dirt is a danger to the divine. By clearing it away, you keep the boundary between sacred and ordinary intact. You are small, yes, but your work holds the temple clean, like a vessel for prayers. Overhead, the painted carvings come alive in dawn's glow. Lotus flowers, the eye of Horus, sacred falcons with outspread wings. You pause to admire them, just for a breath, before a breeze sends another swirl of sand across the floor. The day's rhythm continues. Other servants pass by now and then, water bearers balancing jugs, Young acolytes lighting fresh braziers of incense, an old priest nodding to you as he checks the niches for offerings. You sweep around them all, head down, careful to leave no footprints behind you. When the first worshippers arrive, you step back into the shadows, unseen, unimportant in the eyes of those who come to plead for favor, for rain, for safe passage, into the afterlife. You watch them from a quiet corner, fingers tracing the worn handle of your brew. You wonder what prayers they whisper, what secrets they offer to the towering god's dot in this dawn hush. Your mind drifts like the desert breeze. You are only a sweeper, yet in the swirl of dust and the cool shadow of pillars, you feel the weight of eternity pressing down. Every speck you brush away has fallen here for thousands of years, carried by winds that do not care who you are. And when your work is done for now, you stand in the courtyard, feeling the first warmth of the sun on your shoulders. The sweeping will begin again tomorrow, just as the Nile will rise and fall, just as the gods will stand watching, patient and unmoving. Let this image rest in your mind, the quiet sweep of reeds on stone, the low rustle of sand, the promise of another. Dawn in the temple's heart. Asterisk, a skinny cat winds around your ankles, mewling for scraps. You toss it a fish head from the clay bowl near the hearth. It devours the morsel and purrs, tail flicking in the warm haze. In the corner, a younger helper pounds more grain into flour. You knead dough for flatbreads, dusting your hands with flour that clings to your damp skin. Sometimes, you catch a glimpse of the courtyard through the open doorway. Bright sun, palm fronds rustling, servants hurrying with baskets of laundry or amphorae of beer. But in here, the world shrinks to fire and steam, the hiss of oil in shallow pans, the steady clatter of pots and clay lids. You wonder if the master will notice today's bread. Will he praise it, or scowl and toss it to the dogs? Perhaps he will not notice at all. You swallow your pride like stale bread, focusing instead on not burning the stew, not cracking the clay pot, not tasting more than your share dot. As evening settles, the hearth glows brighter. Shadows play on the rough mud brick walls, the flicker of your hands as you serve out portions into clay bowls. You place these on wooden trays for the household servants to carry away. Then you wait. There will always be more mouths to feed, more pots to scrub, more grain to grind dot, and in this kitchen you find a strange comfort. The fire warms your skin. The smell of simmering lentils clings to your hair. The rhythm of cooking is as steady as the Nile's current, a small, predictable cycle in a world where so much is out of your hands. Let your mind rest here for a moment. Feel the soft heat of the hearth, the ache in your shoulders from kneading dough, the hum of insects outside the open doorway. Breathe in the herbs and smoke, and drift deeper into this simple, timeless kitchen. Asterisk slip now from the hush of the Huth. Temple courtyard to a smaller, clay-scented workshop just beyond the palace walls. Imagine you are sitting cross-legged on a cool, hard floor. A low potter's wheel creaks in front of you, a simple turntable spun by the steady push of your foot. Around you, the walls are streaked with the faint ochre handprints of the potters who came before. The air is warm here, thick with the damp earthiness of fresh clay. In your lap rests a lump of Nile silt, scooped from the river's edge, and stomped by your own feet until it was smooth enough to shape. Now, with wet fingers, you coax it into form. Your hands are rough and lined with tiny cuts. They've learned to listen to the clay. Each push, each pull must be gentle yet firm. Too hard, and the walls will buckle. Too soft, and the pot will collapse under its own weight. You breathe with the wheels turning. In, out, around and around. The village wakes slowly beyond your walls. You hear a child's laughter drift by, the bray of a donkey, the hiss of a cooking fire. But here, in this little circle of wheel and earth, time moves differently. The world shrinks to the spinning of the clay and the steady touch of your hands. Every pot you make must be the same. Good enough to hold beer for the overseers, oil for the lamps, grain for the granaries. Sometimes you sneak in a tiny flourish, a thumbprint at the base, a swirl where only you will see. A small reminder that these cracked, sun-baked vessels carry your mark long after your name has blown away on desert winds. When the shape is right, you lift the pot off the wheel, cradling it like a child. It will dry in the sun, then join the line at the kiln, a low, smoky dome that fires dozens at once. There, under the watchful eye of the head potter, your work will harden, and your labor will be sealed into clay forever. You rub your stiff neck, feeling the ache of hours bent over this circle. Dust clings to your skin. Your toes are gray with silt. You glance at the baskets of clay still waiting. So much more to spin. So many more vessels to shape and stack. Each one another link in the chain that ties you to this endless patient work. But for now, you let the wheel slow. Listen to the creak fade to silence. Breathe in the warm, earthy scent of the room. The pot rests on the shelf behind you, drying. In the morning sun, a small promise that tomorrow you will return to the circle once again. Imagine this, the gentle spin of the wheel, the soft drag of clay beneath your palms, the distant hum of village life beyond these earthen walls. You, the potter, keeper of cups and bowls that cradle life in this vast, ancient kingdom. Asterisk now. Let your thoughts drift from the spinning wheel and clay-smudged hands to the hush of the royal date groves, where dusk settles like warm honey over swaying palms. Imagine yourself standing barefoot in soft sand, a woven basket strapped to your back. Around you, the air hums with the quiet chorus of insects, the steady, patient companions of a Pharaoh's orchard. The date palms are tall, their feathery crowns catching the last gold threads of sunlight. You feel the rough bark under your fingertips as you brace yourself, winding your legs around the trunk to begin your climb. Up here, the world shrinks to the rustle of fronds and the soft, sticky clusters of ripened fruit. It is hard, aching work, climbing, cutting, lowering. Each bundle with care so the precious dates do not bruise. You whisper to yourself in the dark, counting each cluster in a slow chant that lulls you into the rhythm of the harvest. Below, small fires flicker where other servants gather. They sort the dates by size and sweetness, packing them into reed baskets to send downriver to the palace kitchens. Sweet dates for the Pharaoh's table, honeyed treats for feasts, dried rations for the long months ahead. You know that not one will pass your lips. The overseer watches each bundle. A single missing handful could mean punishment, a ration cut, or worse, the lash. So you work on tongue dry, your fingers sticky with syrup you must not taste. High above the orchard floor, you pause for a breath. The breeze carries the cool scent of the river nearby. I promise that soon you'll return to your hut, tired but alive, your basket emptied, your arms and legs trembling from the climb. Back on the ground, you lay your bundle at the overseer's feet. He does not look up. He counts the baskets, barks a quiet order, and the cycle repeats. Climb, cut, lower, sort. Through the night until the stars fade into the gray dawn and the palms stand lighter, their bounty now tucked away behind the palace gates. Before you leave, you stand once more at the edge of the grove. You press your dusty palms to the cool trunk, whispering thanks to the tree that gave you work and another day of life in a kingdom that always asks more. Breathe in the sweet hush of the orchard. Feel the weight slip from your shoulders. The basket empty. You are small beneath these ancient palms, yet your hands help fill the Pharaoh's stores, sweeten his feasts, sustain the court you will never see. The orchard hums with night sounds, the rustle of fronds, the sigh of the river. You walk home barefoot, your body weary, your mind drifting with the hush of the leaves. Asterisk, close your eyes now and feel yourself. Step away from the rustling palms and into the dry hush of stone corridors. You are deep beneath the surface, inside. The low tunnels of Saqqara, the great necropolis of ancient Memphis, a place of eternal rest for the Pharaoh's chosen, and the high-born souls of the two lands. You are not a noble. You are a servant with pigment-stained fingers, a brushmaker's child who learned to grind stones to dust and mix colors in secret recipes. You belong to a small team of artisans called the Sesht, the ones who turn rough walls into visions of eternity. By flickering oil lamps, you and your companions breathe life into stone. The air is thick with the scents of burnt resin, fresh gypsum, and mineral pigment. The walls feel cool beneath your palm as you trace the sketched outlines. Left by the master scribe, your job tonight, to color the royal hunting scenes on a tomb wall that will not be seen again once the last stone is set. A pharaoh's trusted noble wants to be remembered forever as a great hunter, spears flying, desert hares fleeing, dogs snapping at their heels. You grind malachite into green, ochre into golden brown, hematite into red, a small bowl of egg. White binds the colors so they will last for eternity. Or so you hope. You dip your reed brush, steady your breath, and begin. Brushstroke by brushstroke, you build a world that will outlive you. In the quiet, you can almost hear the dogs barking, the noble's laughter, the beat of wings as birds scatter from painted reeds. A single slip of your brush could dishonor the dead, so you focus, eyes straining in the lamplight. Beside you, the master artist murmurs a soft chant for Mat, balance and truth, to guide your hand. He flicks a speck of red from your cheek and nods in approval. You have done well tonight. Sometimes you pause and glance at the half-finished scenes. Servants offering baskets of figs, fishermen casting nets, a scribe counting cattle. You know your own life will never be immortalized like this. No painted tomb for you, only these walls to whisper your name long after your bones are dust. Hours pass. The oil lamps flicker lower. A faint breeze sighs through the burial shaft. You shift your weight, rub your stiff wrist, and stand back to admire the hunt. The noble stands proud in his chariot, forever triumphant. Thanks to your hand. When dawn's first light breaks through the tunnel entrance, you pack your brushes, sweep up the pigment dust, and slip outside into the cool air. The desert stretches golden before you, wide, harsh, but alive with the promise of another day's work. As you walk home, tiny flecks of malachite still stain your nails. A quiet secret, proof that your art will live on long after your name is forgotten. Breathe deeply now. The tomb doors close. Your brush lies waiting for tomorrow's walls. Rest in the hush of Saqqara, where paint and stone hold dreams that drift forever in the dark. Asterisk. Sink into the steady rhythm of the Nile's ancient waters. Feel the warm hush of reeds brushing your ankles as you stand. Knee-deep in silt and brackish water, with the distant croak of frogs carrying across the floodplain. You are not a high priest or a golden noble. You are a canal laborer, born to the mud of the Nile's banks, your life bound to the rivers. Rise and fall. Without you, and thousands like you, the granaries would stand empty, the temples bare of offerings, the Pharaoh's court silent with hunger. Your day begins before the sun gilds the horizon. In the half-light, you join a line of men and boys, baskets and shovels balanced on your shoulders. The foreman's voice carries across the marshes, low but insistent. There is no room for idleness here. The floodwaters must be tamed before they slip away. The Nile's annual inundation brings rich, dark silt, a gift of fertility from the gods. But that gift demands work, cutting canals to channel the flow, building embankments to keep the water from washing away the fields, clearing weeds and stones that choke the veins of this green heart. With bare feet, You wade through sucking mud that clings like clay. Your hands grip a wooden hoe, its edge worn smooth by countless harvests. Each swing is heavy, but the rhythm becomes a comfort. Lift, dig, lift, dig. The splash of water, the sigh of shovels, the slap of wet soil, all blend into a lullaby. For the land dot at midday, you squat under the shade of a lone date palm. You share a gourd of water with your kin, its clay cool against cracked lips. Flatbread and onions fill your belly, just enough to fuel more hours in the field. Talk drifts between the men. Small worries, the promise of a festival when the work is done, the hope that this year's harvest will feed every mouth. Sometimes you pause to watch the birds wheel above the river. Egrets and ibis stand sentinel. At the water's edge, their long legs stirring ripples that dance in the sun. You envy their ease, their freedom from the foreman's bark. Yet you know that this toil is the bond that ties every village to the Pharaoh's court. The grain you help grow will flow down the canals into great storehouses. Priests will count. The sacks, scribes will mark each measure. Taxes paid not in silver, but in sweat and chaff. When the sun dips low, you stand straight and wipe mud from your arms. You stretch aching shoulders, your body humming with exhaustion. The canals glisten. Under the painted sky, new lifelines carved by your hands. Tomorrow, the same rhythm will carry you through again. Dig, haul, dam, guide. Each channel feeds the fields, each furrow shapes a future. You are part of the river's song, carried forward by the gift of the Nile. Sleep now. Drift with the current. Let the hush of reeds and the whisper of water cradle your mind as you dream of harvests yet to come. Listen closely to the chisel's quiet tap, echoing against warm limestone under an endless Egyptian sun. Imagine you are standing barefoot on a rising scaffold, your palms rough and cracked, grains of white dust, clinging to your skin like a second layer. You are a stonemason, not a high priest, not a courtier draped in gold, but a man who shapes the dreams of kings with a copper chisel and sheer human will dot each morning you greet the stone with a nod of respect. This block is your world. For today, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps the next week. It must be perfect. Every edge true, every face smoothed, every hieroglyph that you carve, telling a story that will outlast your bones. The overseer's sandals crunch in the sand behind you. As he passes, he murmurs orders, counts heads, checks that the lines of laborers hauling fresh quarried blocks from the cliffs beyond the Nile remain steady. To falter is to invite punishment, or worse, to bring shame to the Pharaoh's eternal resting place. You lean into your work. Copper chisels ring against the soft yellow limestone, the tap slow but constant. Chips scatter like flakes of dry bread. The sun bakes the stone until it burns under your fingertips. Sweat trickles from your forehead, leaving salt trails that sting your eyes. When your arms ache, you pause and look out over the pyramid's slope. Below, men tug ropes, pull sledges heavy with granite, pour water onto sand to ease the drag. The air vibrates with their grunts, the groan of wood against stone, the bark of overseers urging more speed. In rare moments of rest, you share a jar of beer and a chunk of bread with your fellow masons. You trade stories about your families, your dreams of a small plot of land once your labor is done. You talk about the Pharaoh as if he were a distant star, bright, unreachable, yet your life orbits around him. Sometimes, if you are skilled, or lucky enough, your name may be carved in tiny letters at the base of your finished wall, hidden from sight, but forever part of the monument's bones. It is your small rebellion against the anonymity of labor, a whisper to the ages that you were here. When the day ends, your muscles are leaden, your fingers curled as if still holding the chisel. You brush dust from your hair, watching the sun sink behind the desert dunes. Another block done, one stone closer to the tomb that will house the Pharaoh's immortal soul. Sleep now, Mason. Dream of sand and stars, of stones stacked high against time's hunger. Let the quiet tap of your chisel fade into the hush of the night winds, drifting over Giza's sleeping plain. Settle your mind along the hush of the riverbank. Imagine you're standing ankle-deep in the Nile's murky shallows at dawn. The reeds sway around you like whispering sentinels, and your small wooden boat rocks gently with the tide. You are a boatman, your hands blistered from rope, your back bent from hauling Pharaoh's bounty up and down Egypt's liquid road. Before the sun climbs too high, you and your crew push off, muscles straining as the broad oars dip into the chew. Slow current. The water glitters, a mirror for the rising sun, but there's no time to admire it. Your boat is laden with baskets of grain, amphorae of beer and oil, linen bolts bound in neat rolls, all tribute bound for the Pharaoh's storehouses. Each stroke of the oar is a ritual. Dip, pull, lift, breathe. The rhythm ties you together, a floating brotherhood of sweat and sinew. You smell the sweet decay of river mud, the sharp sting of fish scales, the distant incense wafting from temple docks as you pass. Sometimes the crocodiles drift too close, their eyes just above the surface. Sometimes a sandstone whips the riverbanks, stinging your cheeks raw as you bend into the wind. The overseer, perched at the bow, shouts encouragement when the current tugs you backward, his staff tapping the hull in time with the oars. When you reach a riverside town, you tie up at a dusty dock where scribes tally the Pharaoh's goods, marking each amphora with neat hieroglyphs. There is no room for error. Every measure must match the royal ledger. If a jar breaks or grain spills, someone will answer for it. You snatch a handful of dried dates from your cloth pouch, chewing slowly while you wait for the scribes to finish. The breeze off the water cools your sweat, but you know you'll row again before the day's end. The Nile is Egypt's lifeblood, but for you, it is a tireless taskmaster, always flowing, always demanding. As dusk approaches, you pull away from the dock, steering into the twilight glow. The papyrus boats of fishermen drift past, their nets glistening with the day's catch. Frogs croak from the banks, and the smell of wood smoke drifts over the water. You breathe it all in, the timeless song of the river that binds your labor. To Pharaoh's wealth, one oar stroke at a time. Rest now, boatman. Let your tired arms slacken, and the steady current carry your mind downriver, toward a dreamless sleep beneath the eternal stars of the black land. Ease yourself now into the shadowed coolness of a mud brick cellar, hidden from the sun's harsh glare. Imagine the air, thick with the tang of fermenting grain, the warm yeasty aroma drifting from dozens of wide-mouthed pottery vats. You are a humble brewer, one of hundreds tasked with crafting the beer that fuels Pharaoh's temples, feasts, and the endless hunger of the workers building monuments to eternity. Your day begins before the dawn's first glow. You stand barefoot in the mash pit, mixing cracked emmer wheat with water drawn from the Nile. Your hands plunge into the sticky porridge, your fingers crusted with bran and foam. A heavy stone grinds the grain finer and finer, each push steady and monotonous, like a heartbeat against the cool stone floor. Fires flicker under large clay jars, warming the mash to coax out its life. The sweetness seeps into the brew, mingling with wild dates and herbs, each batch watched over by the goddess Hathor, patron of intoxication and festivity. You offer a quiet prayer to her as you skim the foam, because a spoiled batch means punishment, and waste is an offense against the gods. The cellar is half dark. Only thin slits of light pierce the gloom. Flies buzz lazily around open vats. The air grows sticky, heavy with the scent of barley and boiling water. You breathe it in, your lungs lined with the warmth of your labor. Once the mash is poured into tall jars, you cover each with woven reeds, sealing in the magic of fermentation. Then you shuffle into the storeroom to stack the amphorae, row upon row destined for the royal storehouses, the temple priests or the army encampments upriver. Occasionally, you are allowed a sip warm, cloudy, slightly sour, but enough to keep your belly full when the granaries are locked. You share a quiet laugh with your fellow brewers, their teeth stained from endless tasting. For a moment, your world feels soft and human, before the overseer's footsteps echo through the cellar, reminding you that Pharaoh's thirst is endless. Outside, the sun climbs high, but in this dim pit, the day remains a cycle of grain, fire, and foam. Your hands ache, your back stiffens, yet you do not complain. The gods drink first. Pharaoh drinks next. Only then do you taste your reward, a mouthful of beer that tastes of toil, clay, and fleeting contentment. Let your mind drift with the bubbles rising in the vats. Imagine the soft hiss of fermenting yeast, the smell of warm bread crust. Let it lull you deeper, until your thoughts float as gently as a barley husk on the Nile. Ease your mind into the echoing hush of a great stone temple. The air is cool here, deep inside the sanctuary, where Pharaoh's priests chant prayers to gods, older than memory. But you, a lowly servant, are not here to worship. You are here to sweep out your day begins at dawn, when the temple doors swing open and the first sunbeam touches the gilded statues of Horus, Isis, or Amun-Ra. You carry a bundle of palm fronds, tied together to make a rough broom, and a clay pot of scented oil to anoint the floors when you are done. The scent masks the mustiness that clings to ancient walls, damp stone, traces of incense, the tang of offerings left too long. Your bare feet whisper across the flagstones as you bend low, brushing away the fine desert sand that finds its way in no matter how carefully the priests close the doors. The work is endless. Each corner must gleam. Each hieroglyph must be free of dust. The gods must never see their house neglected. Neglect invites wrath, drought, or plague. You pause to look up at a carved relief, figures of Pharaoh making offerings to the gods. By cleaning this sacred place, you are invisible yet vital, one tiny breath in an endless ritual cycle. The chanting of priests echoes from deeper within the temple, mixing with the soft rasp of your broom got sometimes. You carry away wilted lotus, flowers, or old bread crusts left on altars. You brush away insect husks that gather in the cool shadows behind columns as tall as palm trees. You sprinkle fresh natron to sweeten the air, salt and soda that bite at your cracked hands, but keep. Decay at bay. Your mind drifts with the drifting dust. Each sweep of your broom is a prayer in motion. Each drop of oil, a tiny offering to keep the balance of mat, the harmony of the world. Without you, the temple would fall to ruin. The gods might turn their eyes elsewhere. The people might suffer. But your name will never be carved in stone. No scribe will write your deeds on papyrus. You exist only in the hush of this holy place, a shadow behind the statues, your labor hidden behind the gold and the songs. Stay here a while longer, tracing the swirl of incense smoke as it curls toward the painted ceiling. Let the silence wash over you, the steady rhythm of your sweeping calming your restless mind, a lullaby of stone, sand, and unspoken devotion. Now drift from the shadowed hush of the temple to the sun-baked banks of the Nile. You are still a servant, but your task is far from sacred. Your place is in the mud pits and brick yards, where Pharaoh's palaces, tombs, and storehouses are born from your backbreaking toil. The morning sun is already harsh when you step ankle-deep into the slick gray silt by the river's edge. Can feel the cool ooze squish between your toes, but there is no comfort here, just endless labor. You bend low, your spine straining, as you dig your hands into the clay and mix in brittle handfuls of straw. Without straw, the bricks crumble. Without bricks, Pharaoh's plans crumble too. and that means lashes for you and your family. Beside you, other laborers, some free, some enslaved, some punished criminals, stoop and shape the wet clay into rough rectangles, pressing them into simple wooden molds. Children run barefoot between the rows, fetching straw and water, slapping away flies that gather on your sweating backs. The smell is a mix of earth, sweat, and rotting river reeds. Biting insects hover in clouds above your skin. Once shaped, the bricks are hauled on reed mats to the firing pit. There, a new heat awaits, the scorching blaze of open flames that harden each block for Pharaoh's storehouses or grand walls. You feed bundles of reeds into the fire, your face flushed and dry from the heat, eyes watering from the smoke. Sometimes, a taskmaster's shadow falls across your bent shoulders, a whip dangling at his side, a reminder that your pace must never falter. You mutter a silent plea to the gods that the sun stays steady, that the river does not flood too soon, that your strength holds out until dusk. Your arms ache from hefting heavy mud. Your fingers crack and bleed from the straw's sharp edges. But without your labor, the temples do not rise, the royal tombs stay unfinished, the granaries cannot hold their harvest. You are the invisible mortar that binds Pharaoh's dreams. Together, the mud beneath his golden sandals dot, so you move from pit to pit, brick to brick, hour to hour, shaping the clay that shapes an empire, your own life reduced to a string of blistered days. And as the sun sets, you gather under a lone acacia tree to eat a meager meal, hands stained and sore. You glance at the walls you helped build, knowing they will stand long after you crumble back into the same soil you shaped. Asterisk now drift from the mud pits to the darkened recesses behind Pharaoh's kitchens, where your hands know only the weight of a cleaver and the warmth of fresh blood. Imagine yourself in a stone-walled butchery, hidden from the perfumed banquet halls you will never enter. You stand barefoot on the smooth, red-stained floor. Around you hang sides of goat, fowl, and cattle, sacrifices brought from temple herds, tribute from the provinces. Their scent is heavy, iron-rich, tinged with the sourness of old straw and sweat. Your cleaver rests on a low, battered block. Its wooden handle is slick with use, worn smooth by the many servants who stood here before you. In the hush before dawn, you begin your work. Your hands are quick but careful. You must portion the best cuts for Pharaoh's table and the priests, the finer joints for the scribes and overseers, the scraps for fellow laborers, or the temple cats who skulk around. Your feet, the tasks repeat like an incantation. Slice along the bone, peel back the hide, carve away the fat. You flick flies from your arms as they settle to feed. Sometimes, the beasts are brought to you still warm from the blade, sacrificial offerings that arrive from temple altars. Their lifeblood part of the gods' bargain. At midday, the air thickens with the stink of offal. You shovel scraps into reed baskets, your calves splattered with blood. The butchery must be swept clean before the kitchen overseer inspects your work. A single mistake, a spoiled carcass, a portion miscounted, could mean your rations are docked, your position lost, your family left hungry. You know your place. You are a shadow behind the feast, your labor hidden beneath platters of roasted duck and honeyed locusts. No garlands, no praise. Only the rhythm of your blade and the hum of flies to keep you company. And when the royal tables are cleared and the scraps fed to temple cats and crocodiles downstream, you stagger home. Through narrow alleys, the smell of raw meat clinging to your skin like a curse. Tomorrow, you will stand again beneath the butcher's awning. Tomorrow, your cleaver will sing its soft, steady song. Now breathe out the heavy scent of the butchery and drift out into the open fields again. This time, with a woven reed basket strapped to your back. Imagine the feel of it digging into your shoulders, a rough, scratchy cradle of palm fronds, bound tight with twine. Inside, the basket holds Pharaoh's grain, his dates, his sweet onions. It might also carry clay bricks, straw for the cattle, or scraps for the pig pens behind the granary walls. You are a basket bearer, a silent line of bodies winding through Egypt's wide courtyards and dusty lanes. Each morning, your feet slap the same worn paths, from the storehouses to the kitchens, from the threshing floors to the brewer's hut, from the temple granaries to the palace gates. The basket never gets lighter. If it's full, your back aches with the weight. If it's empty, the overseer's eyes are sharp, demanding more to fill it. You sweat through your linen kilt, feel the sun crack your lips, the grit cling to your ankles. Other servants pass you. By the water pourer, the fish scaler, the linen washer. Everyone carries something for someone else, in this chain that leads always upward, to Pharaoh's household, so far above your reach. When the Nile floods, you haul sandbags instead, to hold back the river's surge. When the waters recede, you carry mud bricks to patch broken walls. And always, the basket digs deeper into the soft part of your shoulder, leaving a groove that never fully fades. At dusk, you rest under a palm. You rub the welts, sip warm water. From a clay jug, watch the last barges drift down the river. Some nights, you dream of walking without burden. Hands empty, back straight, but at dawn you feel the basket waiting for you. You slip your arms through its straps again, like slipping, into your place in the order of things. And so the day begins once more. Set down the heavy basket for now. Let your back relax against the mud brick wall. Now, imagine that your hands have found a new duty, a flame that must never die. By day, your tasks might seem ordinary. Tending oil jars, gathering reeds, shaping clay cups. But when Ra dips beneath the horizon, your true work begins. You are the lamplighter, the keeper of flickers and shadows in Pharaoh's darkened palace halls. At dusk, the corridors grow heavy with hush. The wide courts, once alive with chatter, settle into soft footsteps and whispers. Your small flame carried in a saucer of flickering. Oil becomes the single point of hope against the endless black. You pass beneath high lintels, past painted columns where gods with falcon heads look down. You dip your reed into the oil, feed the wicks that line the walkways, alcoves, and doorways. Sometimes you spill oil down your tunic. Sometimes the wick sputters, sending a thread of smoke into your nose and stinging your eyes. The palace is vast. Shadows stretch longer than you can chase. You kneel to light lamps at the feet of limestone statues, then rise to trim the flame in the high sconce above a priest's bedchamber door. The worst is when the wind whips through the hallways, a sudden gust from the riverside that snuffs your flame. You must return, relight it from the hearth, and begin again. The overseer demands no dark corners for vermin to scuttle through, no unlit threshold for ill spirits to slip past. In the deepest night, when Pharaoh's dreams are guarded by incense and prayers, you crouch in the storage room, checking your oil jars, wrapping reeds for tomorrow's rounds. Your eyes blur with smoke, your palms shine with oil. But you know that when you are gone, another will come, hands stained the same way, carrying the fragile promise that the night will always yield to light. Breathe in the soft smell of burning oil. Feel the hush settle in your chest. And now, step back into the shadows. The flame flickers on behind you, casting shapes that dance on ancient walls. Rest your hands on the worn edge of the basin. Can you feel the river's chill, the smell of soap root, the tug of linen against your raw knuckles? Tonight, drift into the hidden world behind the temple courtyards, where the humblest servants scrub the garments that touch the flesh of the divine in the temple of Ammon or Hathor. The priests wear fine white linen spun so sheer it whispers. When they walk, But someone must wash those robes, over and over, until no trace of sweat or stain remains. That someone is you. Each dawn, you wade into the bank's shallows with bundles balanced on your shoulders. The sunrise catches the reeds, turning their tips cold while you stand knee-deep in silt. Beating cloth against flat stones, soaproot pulp and natron sting your fingers. You rub the cloth again and again, rinsing it clean until the rivers. Current carries the dirt away. You watch the fabric drift like pale ghosts underwater before pulling it free and wringing it out with aching wrists. When the robes are clean, you drape them over rush mats or spread them along the smooth temple. Steps to dry in the sun. Then you squat beside them, guarding against stray dogs or passing feet that might soil them again. If even a speck of grime remains, the high priest's overseer will shout curses in your ear. A stain is an insult to the gods. And you, a servant, will be the one blamed for their anger. Your days are a rhythm of lather, rinse, guard, fold. You know every frayed hem, every hidden tear. You know how the linen stiffens in winter, how it softens when soaked in Nile water, warmed by the sun. When your arms ache too much to lift another tunic, you dip your hands in the river one last time. Washing the soap away, you stand in the shallows and look across the water, where the temple's white walls rise, so close yet so far from the life you know. The sacred linens dry pure and white in the sunlight. Your fingernails remain raw and cracked in the shadows. Breathe in the smell of fresh water, natron, and sunlight. Feel your eyes grow heavy as the day fades behind temple walls. Close your eyes. Can you hear them? A soft, constant hum like tiny wings brushing against your thoughts. Tonight, you slip away from the temple walls and step into the golden hush of the palace apiary. A world that hums and stings, feeding a God King's table with sweetness that costs you your skin. You are the royal beekeeper, a servant trusted with the hives that produce the Pharaoh's honey. This sweetness is sacred. It drips onto bread baked for festivals, stirred into beer for celebrations, used in salves that soothe the king's wounds. But the bees do not care who you serve dot at dawn. You crouch before rows of clay hives lined up, like tiny tombs. You smear your arms with thin smoke, coaxing the swarm to calm. You hum to them softly, an old trick passed from your father's father, while you pry open the hive's narrow entrance with a reed knife. Warm honey drips down your wrists, sticky and golden. Wax crumbles under your nails. You breathe. In the scent, sweet, earthy, tangled with the faint spice of the burning grass bundle that keeps the bees docile. And yet, every harvest is a gamble. Sometimes they swarm, angered by a single wrong touch. They crawl into your tunic, sting your scalp. You bite your tongue to stop from crying out. The Pharaoh's beekeeper must endure the stings like an offering to the hive itself. When the honeycomb is full, you pack it into clay pots sealed with linen and beeswax. Carefully, you carry it to the palace storehouses. There, scribes tally every drop, recording your yield on a fresh piece of papyrus. But if the honey is spoiled, or the hives die in a bad flood season, the blame rests on your shoulders. And the Pharaoh's anger can be more painful than 1,000 stings dot, so each day, you bow your head before the hives, whispering to your bees like they're tiny priests. You tend the queen. You mend the clay cylinders if they crack in the sun. Your skin is speckled with welts, your fingers sticky for hours, and still you hum, under your breath, blending your heartbeat with the sound of wings. Asterisk, slip deeper into the marshland dusk. Listen, the reeds rustle. The papyrus leaves hiss under the weight of dusk-born insects. In the still shallows beyond the palace gardens, you stand barefoot in warm mud, eyes trained on the glassy water dot. You are the servant appointed as sentinel of the Pharaoh's sacred crocodile pool. a pond dug near the temple in honor of Sobek, the crocodile god of power and fertility. These beasts are sacred, and they are hungry. Your duty is to guard them, to feed them scraps from temple sacrifices, to keep them from slipping free of their banks. Sometimes they are adorned with jewels, painted in blue or green pigments that wash off with each wallow. In the pond's SHALLOWS at dawn, you carry baskets of offal, the cast-offs of royal kitchens or the remnants from the altar, and toss them, one by one, to the waiting reptiles. Their eyes barely break the surface, pale and unblinking, glinting like cold coins in the early sun. When you were first appointed, the other servants laughed. They said you'd lose an arm within a week, but you learned to know their moods. Which old beast preferred the far bank, which young bull would snap first if you stepped too close. You learned to move slowly, your feet pressing reeds flat so they wouldn't crack and spook the water. On some nights, when the Pharaoh hosts a festival, the priests gather by the pool. They recite blessings to Sobek, asking for fertile floods. Strong suns, powerful armies, torches flicker. The crocs slip beneath the water. Ghost shapes in the glow. Sometimes, a noble child dares to sneak too near. Sometimes, your voice must crack the night. A hiss, a warning. Your reed staff tapping the earth to drive the children back. The punishment for a sacred crocodile harmed, or worse, lost, is worse than losing a limb. It means disgrace, lashes, or worse. So you sleep lightly, curled in a reed hut by the pond's edge, the crocs only a few arms' lengths away, your dreams tangled with the low growls that echo from the water. By dawn, you rise again. The pond glimmers gold. The reptiles lie still, like living statues, and you begin again, wading through mud, eyes searching for the flick of a tail, the gleam of a tooth, the gods' beasts waiting for your tribute. Asterisks slip into the cool hush of clay walls and dry shadows. Now, imagine yourself moving slowly along a narrow corridor lined with amphory stacked floor to ceiling. Each vessel sealed with wax, marked in red ochre with the symbols of its contents: barley, figs, honey, oil, incense. You are the keeper of the Pharaoh's palace storerooms. Your job seems simple: count, record, guard. But you know the truth. Every missing measure of oil, every handful of honey, every pinch of frankincense must be accounted for. A single miscount could cost you your rations, or worse. By dawn's first light, you squat on the packed earth floor, a reed stylus gripped. Between your stained fingers, you press soft clay tablets against your knees, carving symbols into the damp surface. One tablet for each storeroom: oils, spices, wine jars, fine linens. You mutter the names under your breath like a chant to stay awake. Thieves are your greatest. Worry, not the brazen sort with knives, but the quiet ones, fellow servants who slip a fig or a measure of flour under their robes to feed a hungry child. You know their faces, the downcast eyes, the furtive glances at the palace guards. Sometimes the guards themselves come. Gruff men who expect tribute, a jar of wine, a pouch of dates. You watch your stores shrink, the Pharaoh's wealth, draining in drips and drops. But your name sits on the clay tablets. If a royal scribe orders an audit and finds too much gone, the blame is yours alone. At midday, you slip outside into the courtyard heat, stretching your cramped back. You see the scribes in their fine kilts, their ink pots at their belts, moving. Among the royal kitchens, counting loaves, counting cattle, counting you. No one counts the scribes. At dusk, you light the oil lamps. The storerooms glow amber under flickering flames. You run your fingers over the seals, check each jar's weight. You know the difference between a full measure and a half. You feel it in your bones. Then, at last, you curl up to sleep on. A reed mat wedged between amphorae. Cool clay walls press around you, your dreams filled with the steady drip of oil and the rustle of mice in the straw. Tomorrow, the count begins again. Asterisk, breathe in the dry heat that clings to your linen tunic. Like a second skin, you are a royal courier, one of the Pharaoh's swift runners, trusted to carry sealed messages across the scorched sands. At dawn, you stand at the palace gates with a satchel of wax tablets and folded papyrus scrolls tied with cord. A small leather water skin hangs from your shoulder. You check it once, twice. It is never enough. You slip past the city walls, sandals crunching over gravel and sand. The Nile glimmers in the distance, a strip of green that slowly disappears behind you as you follow the desert trail toward a distant border fortress. Your jog is a lonely one. There are no camels for you, only your feet and the hard-packed road. The messages you carry may mean the difference between life and death for soldiers waiting at the frontier. You feel the weight of every word sealed within the clay envelope. Pressed against your chest by midday, the sun burns high overhead. Your lips crack, dust coats your tongue. There is no shade except for the occasional acacia bush, its meager branches scratching at your skin as you lean beneath it for a heartbeat's worth of rest. At night, you sleep curled beneath your satchel, wary of jackals and desert snakes. Sometimes you pass a caravan, traders draped in bright cloth, camels braying under the weight of spices and copper. They glance at your slim satchel with polite indifference, but you see the flicker of curiosity. What royal words ride with you? What secrets are pressed into your sweat-soaked tunic? Sometimes you wonder the same, but you never break the seal. Not once. When you finally reach the fortress gates, your calves ache like stretched leather. The guard takes the tablet from your hands. You watch him disappear behind mud-brick walls. Your task completed for now. No thanks, no coin, only a grunt and a cup of brackish water to drink before you turn back down the same road. Your reward? The knowledge that tomorrow another message will wait. Another trail, another horizon. And behind every word, the Pharaoh's will. Asterisk, take a slow breath and imagine yourself waking before dawn, when the temple courtyard is still cool and shadowed. You are not a priest. You are not an artisan. You are a humble caretaker, keeper of the sacred ibis, the crocodile, the cat, or the falcon, depending on which temple claims your service. Your master, the high priest, demands that these animals, living symbols of the gods, be clean, fed, and honored. You move silently between low stone enclosures, the smell of straw and dung sharp, in the cool air at the sacred lake. You kneel to draw buckets of water, pouring it into shallow basins where the birds preen their feathers, indifferent to your presence. The cats wind around your ankles, soft purrs vibrating through your sandals. They watch you with eyes half-lidded, divine beings who may decide your fortune with a flick of the tail in the reptile pens. You step carefully around shallow pools where sacred crocodiles glide just beneath the surface. You toss small fish, careful not to slip on the wet stones. A careless move means a missing finger, or worse, a fate not uncommon among your fellows, who sometimes speak in hushed tones about the price of a misplaced offering. You scrub the courtyards with bundled reeds, sweeping away droppings before the priests and pilgrims arrive. Incense curls through the morning air, mixing with the earthy smells you have come to know as your daily scent: musk, feathers, and wet stone. Your tasks are not glorious, but they are vital. Without you, the symbols of the gods might hunger, grow sick, or die, a sign of ill omen for the temple, for the priesthood, for the people. And should one of these animals die before its time, the blame can trickle down like sand through an hourglass. The penalty is harsh. Sometimes you've heard the whispers, a simple servant, taken away in the night for negligence. The temple must remain pure. The gods must not be angered. So you move through your daily rituals with bowed head, soft hands, careful and steady. You speak to the creatures as you work, quiet words to calm them, and perhaps to calm yourself. For in their eyes, you glimpse the divine, but you also glimpse your own fragile place beneath the weight of the Pharaoh's gods. Imagine yourself once more in the soft gold of early dawn. You step barefoot onto the packed dirt path that leads to the sacred canal. The ground is cool, but soon the sun will rise, and every footstep will stir up dust and the hot bite of dry reeds underfoot. Your job today, and nearly every day, is simple on the surface. Bring water. But the canal is nearly half a mile from the temple complex. Each morning, you and your fellow servants gather long, gourd-shaped jugs, heavy clay that rubs the skin of your shoulders raw by day's end. You walk in silence, the line of servants stretching along the canal's edge. Dragonflies hover above the green water. Papyrus stalks sway gently. There's a certain beauty here, the sound of frogs croaking, the glimpse of fish flashing beneath the surface. But you know better than to be distracted. You squat at the bank, careful not to let your foot slip in the mud. One misstep and you'll tumble in, soaking your only linen kilt, ruining the water for the priests who demand it clear of mud and floating weeds. You fill the jug, muscles straining as you lift it onto your back. The wet clay seeps its chill into your spine for a few moments, a small mercy before the weight settles. And then you turn, steadying your balance, as you begin the long trek back along the dusty path. On this narrow strip of earth, the same small tragedies play out day after day. A jug slips from a tired shoulder and shatters on the stones. A young servant collapses from heat. An overseer's rod snaps across someone's back for lagging behind. And always the canal flows on, indifferent. You watch the barges drifting in the distance, merchants and nobles, fanning themselves under canopies, oblivious to the drudgery that feeds the sacred fires. Your steps fall into a rhythm. Crunch, crunch, a song of your life measured by the weight pressing into your bones. Back at the temple, the priests accept your water with a curt nod, never glancing at the red marks blooming on your shoulders. Tomorrow, you will do it again. And the next day, too. The canal, the clay jugs, the path, all woven into the endless pattern of your servitude. A single thread in the Pharaoh's vast tapestry. Settle back into the shadows of the temple courtyard now, where the sound of your feet is muffled by piles of green reeds stacked high. You stand among other servants, men, women, even young children, all stooped low, hands working constantly. Your job today is weaving. It seems simple, binding reed to reed, but your fingers grow raw within an hour, skin rubbed thin by the coarse fibers. The overseer paces behind you, a thin rod tapping his palm, waiting for the first sign of slowness. You weave baskets for grain, mats for priests' chambers, trays for offerings. Each must be strong enough to last, tight enough that grain doesn't spill, precise enough to please the scribes, who tally every item that passes through this place. You steal glances at the other servants, shoulders hunched, sweat beading on their brows. You notice the lines etched into their hands, the permanent grooves left behind by thousands of reeds stripped and twisted. Season after season, the reeds themselves whisper secrets as they slide through your fingers. The rustle of the marshland from which they came, the hush of wind through papyrus, the distant splash of a crocodile in the Nile. But here, there is no river breeze to cool your skin, only the dry heat of courtyard stones, the constant scrape of reed against skin, and the hiss of an overseer's. Threats. Your mind drifts. You wonder if the Pharaoh himself ever touches these baskets. Perhaps they hold figs and baits for his table. Perhaps they line the shelves of a scribe's chamber, brimming with rolled papyrus scrolls. But you, the weaver, remain invisible, another pair of cracked hands feeding the endless cycle of temple life. By dusk, your legs are numb, your back ached into a permanent curve. You set down your final basket, brush stray fibers from your lap, and stand. Tomorrow, the reeds will be there again, piled high and green. Your fingers will toughen, then split once more. The Pharaoh's storehouses will overflow, and you will weave on, a small link in an empire that never sleeps. Asterisk slip quietly, now into the edge of a bustling village at the Nile's bend, a place you'd think might offer relief from the grand temples, but the Pharaoh's reach is long. Here, the dreaded scribes arrive, carrying their tall reed pens and clay tablets. As a servant, you belong to a household that must be counted. You stand in line with your master's other servants, your head low, the sun pressing down like a hammer. The scribes mutter to one another, tallying livestock, grain, goats, and you, human property. Their eyes are sharp, measuring everything they see, the calluses on your hands, the state of your sandals, the lumps of garlic and onions you might have tucked in your belt. They know when a household tries to hide wealth, bury grain jars, or claim fewer servants. To lighten the tax burden, they are trained to see deceit, and they wield their knowledge like a blade. When they look at you, you feel their judgment cut deeper than any overseer's whip. You hear the scratch of the stylus against the clay as they fix your existence into Pharaoh's endless ledgers. Your labor promised for another season. Your sweat calculated in bushels and offerings. Behind them stand the tax collectors, broad-shouldered, men with weighted rods. If the scribes find a household in default, they seize a goat, a measure of grain, or even an extra child to serve the temple. There is no escape, no protest, only the hush of sandals on dust as your master pleads for mercy. You shift your weight as the sun climbs higher. The line inches forward, but it never ends. The village has grown quiet. The only sounds the low wail of a mother who just lost her youngest to temple servitude, the scratch of the scribe's reeds, and the rustle of papyrus slips dropped into clay jars. By dusk, your name, or rather your mark, since few servants are taught to read, has joined the Pharaoh's great accounts. The burden of your labor, your breath, your future, all weighed like gold rings on a balance scale. And tomorrow, you return to your master's house, your body already pledged to fill the coffers of a ruler you will never meet. Asterisk now, drift further. Along the Nile's edge, where your days are not spent in cool stone halls, but knee-deep in muddy water. For every Pharaoh's servant, there is one truth. The river is both a giver and a taker, and you are bound to its rhythm. Your master's fields depend on the river's flood, but after the flood recedes, who must carve the channels that drag the water back to thirsty crops? You, along with dozens of other servants, bent double under the sun, scraping at the clay earth with wooden shovels and baskets woven from reeds. Imagine the smell: rich silt, warm water, the tang of sweat, and the sour scent of your own wet linen. Your bare feet sink into muck as you lift another basket of mud and toss it up to the bank. All around you, the fields breathe with the croak of frogs, the whine of insects, the distant calls of ibis. There is no shade but the drifting clouds, no rest but a swig from a clay jug passed from hand to trembling hand. Overseers pace the embankments, leaning on staffs, calling out when you slow. If the ditch is crooked, if the water won't flow, you'll dig it again tomorrow. You find yourself watching the river's slow gleam, daydreaming of drifting away like a lotus blossom, far from the master's demands and the Pharaoh's taxes. But your arms keep moving. Your back aches with the weight of every shovel full of wet clay. At night, you stumble back to the servants' quarters, your hands raw, your nails split. You carry the river on your skin, the smell of it clinging to. Your hair long after the moon has risen. This is the hidden price of those lush fields and glittering temples. The irrigation, ditches that snake like veins across the kingdom, carved out one basket at a time by servants like you. Take a slow breath now. Let the river's edge fade from your mind. In its place, imagine the endless glare of the desert sun reflecting off fields of salt. Here, far from the green life of the Nile, you're sent to the salt mines, one of the Pharaoh's harshest demands. The desert winds whip against your skin, caking it in a mix of sweat and sharp white crystals. Each day begins at dawn, when the sun's heat is still bearable. You and your fellow servants trudge out, feet crunching over brittle crusts, carrying wooden picks and baskets woven from palm fibers. Salt pans stretch to the horizon, a blinding sea of white under a blue sky that never offers mercy. You chip away at the packed salt crust, each swing sending tiny flakes into the air, stinging your eyes and lips. There is no escape from the taste. You lick your cracked lips, and they taste of salt. Your breath is heavy with it. Your skin is raw, where salt gathers in your tunic's folds. Sometimes you catch sight of overseers perched on distant dunes. They appear like desert spirits, wrapped in linen, faces shadowed under reed hats, watching for signs of lagging. A moment's rest earns a barked order. There is always another load to haul, another pan to clear, when you haul your baskets to. The stockpiles, the sun is high overhead, and every muscle in your body feels scrubbed raw by the grit and the brine. You wonder if your back will ever straighten again out at night. Your dreams taste of salt. You wake coughing from the dryness in your throat. The Pharaoh's palace may be gilded with spices and sweet perfumes, but its stone floors are scrubbed. With salt from your blistered hands. It's a hidden corner of history. The salt that flavors his table and preserves his meats comes from the desert sweat of those who dig and scrape beneath an unforgiving sun. Asterisk, close your eyes and let the salt mines drift behind you. Imagine instead the hush of a shaded wetland on the temple grounds, the sacred pool where the Pharaoh's priests keep their living offerings, the ibis birds. You might think this is easier work, but tending the sacred ibis comes with its own quiet demands. The birds are living symbols of Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing. To anger them, or worse, let one die on your watch, means divine disgrace, maybe even a public beating or banishment from temple service. So each dawn you slip through reeds, your bare feet sinking in the muddy edge of the sacred pool. You carry baskets of small fish, freshly caught by other servants at the river's bend, and scatter them gently into the shallows. The ibises crowd near, their elegant necks dipping to catch the fish, their eyes sharp with suspicion. Some are sickly or injured. You wrap their thin legs in linen splints, smear their wings with fragrant oils to chase away pests. The high priests demand daily reports. How many ate? Who is nesting? Any signs of disease? You must remember every detail. The smallest mistake could bring the priest's wrath. The wetlands hum with insects, the air thick with the musky scent of damp reeds and bird droppings. Mosquitoes bite at your arms as you crouch to clean the shallow pools. Your linen tunic is soon soaked, stuck to your skin in the midday heat. And yet, the ibis remain serene, their bright feathers gleaming white against the green pools. In moments of quiet, you almost forget the endless lists, the overseers, the hidden eyes of the priests behind the temple columns. At night, you lie on your reed mat, half dreaming of the ibis gliding across the moonlit pools, wishing your own life were half so free. Asterisk. Now let the cool hush of the sacred ibis pools drift away. Imagine you are standing deep inside the shadowed heart of the temple, where the air is thick with the heady scent of incense, its smoke curling like pale snakes toward the gilded ceiling. Your new task is to prepare the sacred incense offerings. It sounds pleasant, doesn't it? But as a lowly servant, you must grind the resins, the myrrh, the frankincense, the fragrant woods into a fine powder. Day after day, hour after hour, each dawn, you climb narrow mud-brick stairs to the storeroom, the scent of spices greeting you before you even enter. Heavy clay jars line the walls, sealed tight to keep out the damp and thieves alike. You haul down the resin cakes, sticky and brittle at once. Your hands are soon caked with sap. Your nose burns with the sharp sweetness of crushed leaves and pine. You pound the mixture in a stone mortar, the pestle slipping in your sweat-slick grip. Each blend must be exact. Too much cedar, and the priest will snarl at you for defiling the god's chamber with smoke that doesn't please him. When the powder is ready, you kneel in the sanctum's half-light. The head priest sprinkles the incense onto the coals. The smoke rises in thin streams, dancing above the golden statue of the god, carrying whispered prayers for Pharaoh's health and the temple's protection. You hold your breath, waiting for the priest's nod of approval. One wrong note, one harsh scent, and you could be dismissed, or worse, publicly punished for angering the gods. By night, you still carry the smell in your hair, your tunic, your dreams. Even when you wash at the river's edge, the ghost of frankincense clings to you, reminding you that your life is not your own. It drifts always toward the gods, like the rising smoke. Let the scent of temple incense fade now, drifting back into the shadows of the sanctum. Imagine instead the dry echo of your footsteps in a tomb corridor far below the desert sands. You, a humble servant, hunched beneath a flickering rushlight, your fingers numb from hours of polishing. Walls that belong to a king you'll never see alive. You've been assigned to the tomb, carver's crew, not the ones who chisel the grand stories of Osiris and Ra, but the final layer of labor, the polishers. The limestone walls are covered in images of Pharaoh's triumphs, each line etched with care by skilled hands. But it is you, the lowest servant, who must smooth every surface until it glows like moonlight on still water. You drag your rough cloth over each figure. The royal chariots, the jackal-headed Anubis, the feast that Pharaoh will enjoy forever. In the field of reeds, hours pass in silence, save for the rasp of your cloth and the soft crackle of your torch. The air is stale, heavy with the dust of centuries. Sometimes your torch gutters out, leaving you in pure darkness until another worker hurries to relight it. Your legs cramp from crouching on hard stone floors. The oil in your lamp burns low. The overseer's footsteps echo behind you. He inspects each polished patch with cold eyes. A single dull spot, a careless smudge, and he shouts, threatening a beating or worse. You think of the sun above, the heat on your back, the taste of fresh dates. But down here, you are buried alive long before your death, sealing pharaohs. Glory into these walls stone by stone, shine by shine. When the burial finally comes, you slip out before the last stones close the passage forever, your hands raw and your eyes blinking against the harsh daylight. A free man again, until the next tomb calls you back into the hush of the underworld. Take a slow breath. Rise from the stifling tomb passage and drift up into the early hush of dawn, where you stand barefoot on cool flagstones in Pharaoh's temple courtyard, a reed broom in your cracked hands. This is not the grand work of carving or building or weaving, but the quiet, endless labor of sweeping. Before the priests arrive with their incense, before the dignitaries walk through, before Pharaoh's sandals touch these stones, the courtyard must be spotless, as pure as the god-king himself. Bend low, sweeping dust that drifts back with every breath of wind. The breeze from the Nile carries sand, leaves, and tiny scraps of reed. No matter how carefully you sweep, more grit finds its way back. Your arms ache in slow circles. The sky grows lighter, shifting from deep violet to gold. You glance up at the painted columns, bright lotus flowers, soaring falcons, but there is no time to marvel. You must watch for the overseer's sharp eyes. You must clear every crack. Between stones with a reed brush, stooping until your back stiffens like sun-baked clay. If your broom snaps, you tie it with strips of papyrus and keep going. There will be no break until the courtyard shines like polished alabaster dot. Sometimes you pause at the edges, peering at the river in the distance, wondering what it might feel like to lie on its banks. Warm sun on your face, no broom in your hand. But the temple gates open and the priests file in, whispering blessings you barely hear. You stand aside, head bowed, your footprints vanishing behind you. The courtyard spotless, as if no servant ever toiled here at all. Imagine yourself shouldering a heavy clay jar, its damp sides chilling your tunic as you make your way from the riverbank to the temple's sacred heart. The sun is now fully risen, the coolness of dawn already gone, and every step up the long avenue of Sphinx feels heavier than the last dot. Water is life here, a sacred gift of the Nile, and it must be pure, fresh, and free of the river's floating silt and reeds. Your task is simple but endless. Fetch water, carry it, pour it, and then return for more. Your bare feet slap the stone steps. A jar drips down your back and shoulders. A priest waits at the inner gate, face painted, linen robes snowy white, and you, sweat-soaked and dusty, bow your head to keep your breath from touching him. You pour the water slowly into carved alabaster basins, watching it swirl and settle, carrying away the dust of the day before. Then back you go, through the temple court, past the other servants, who carry baskets of lotus blossoms and jars of honey and platters of fresh bread for the offerings. The overseer glances at your jar. Not full enough? Back to the Nile. The cycle repeats. Sometimes you glimpse your reflection in the shimmering surface of the water. Thin arms, burned shoulders, skin lined with salt and sun. But you do not pause long. The temple waits. The priests wait. The Pharaoh's offerings must not dry out beneath the merciless Egyptian sun. By night, your shoulders are raw. Your hands crack where the clay jar digs into your skin. But there is always more to fetch. Always another basin to fill. Always more water to carry. Imagine now you've been assigned to the temple's sacred menagerie. An honor, they say, though you wonder if it's simply another test of your patience and quiet endurance. Here, the cats, ibises, crocodiles, and even the occasional sacred bull must be fed, watered, and kept free from disease. Each dawn, you slip through stone corridors lined with painted reliefs of gods and pharaohs, your bare feet brushing sand and papyrus mats. You hold bowls of milk for the temple cats, sleek, spotted creatures who wind around your ankles, flicking their tails with an arrogance even a priest might envy. In another pen, a sacred bull stands tied to a carved wooden post, its flanks gleaming with oil rubbed in by senior keepers. You must brush its coat, whisper soft chants under your breath, and gather the straw bedding when it becomes soiled, all without spooking the creature or angering the gods. The air is thick with the smell of hay, animal dung, and fragrant resins burned to please the divine spirits. Sometimes you glimpse the priests gliding by, their coal-lined eyes glancing down to ensure you never shirk your task. If a sacred animal falls ill on your watch, punishment is swift and merciless. An unhealthy creature is a sign of neglect, a stain on the temple's holiness, and a stain on your worth. You move carefully, bowing to the ibis as it snaps at the fish in your basket, offering each morsel with a reverence born of fear. At dusk, you sweep out the pens, replace the straw, and rub oil into your chapped hands. Tomorrow, the cycle begins again, feeding, cleaning, whispering your humble prayers that these sacred beasts stay content, and that you, a lowly caretaker, might stay unnoticed and unharmed. Asterisk, now drift with me from the temple's shaded courtyards to the harsh, sun-bleached quarries far beyond the city. Imagine you've been ordered, or born, into a labor gang tasked with hewing limestone for yet another royal tomb. No grand columns here, no painted reliefs, only rock, heat, and the rasp of your own breath. Before dawn, you trudge barefoot through the desert scrub, shoulders stiff from carrying your stone chisel and copper hammer. When the sun rises, it bakes the pale quarry walls until they gleam like a mirage dot. The foreman watches from under a scrap of linen shade, tallying the number of blocks each gang produces. You bend to your work. Tap, wedge, lever. Stone dust clogs your nostrils, coats your tongue in a gritty film. The other men around you work in silence or hum soft chants to keep the rhythm, to keep the mind from drifting too far into exhaustion. It's said some never return from the quarries, buried where they fell, under a cairn of broken ships. When a block finally comes free, you and your fellows lash ropes around it, dragging it to the waiting sledges. Every footstep in the hot sand feels heavier than the last, a sip of brackish water from a shared clay jug is your only relief. And when dusk comes, you curl up near the quarry's edge under a rough wool blanket, the stone face you spent all day chipping still gleaming above you in the moonlight. The Pharaoh's tomb will rise in glory one day, they say. But for you, there is only this: the endless dust, the pounding sun, the scrape of chisel on stone. A rhythm as old and relentless as the Nile itself. Now close your eyes and leave the quarry's stinging dust behind. Drift down to the wide, glittering ribbon of the Nile, the lifeline that carries your king's wealth and your sweat alike. Picture yourself chained to an oar on a royal barge, muscles taut, back slick with sweat as the reed-fringed banks drift by. The Pharaoh's cargo grain, precious stones, even carved statues must reach its destination before the season changes. And so you row. The overseer calls the cadence with a steady drumbeat. Boom, boom, boom. Each thud echoes through your bones as you lean forward, dip the oar, pull back in a practiced, punishing rhythm. Sunlight dances on the water's surface, but you feel no relief from the burning sky overhead. Sometimes the wind favors you, filling the sail and giving you precious moments to rest. In those brief hushes, you catch the scent of the river, muddy and sweet, alive with papyrus reeds and hidden crocodiles lurking beneath. You might trade a glance with the rower beside you, his face hollow with fatigue, lips cracked from thirst. When storms come up, the calm can vanish in an instant. Rain lashes your back, waves slap the hull. The overseer's shouts grow sharper, more urgent. And still you row, because to stop is to invite the whip, or worse. At night, you unchain yourself from the bench, roll your shoulders, and lie on the deck's rough planks. Above you, the constellations wheel slowly over the Nile's mirror surface, unchanged since the time of your ancestors. Yet you, the servant at the oar, drift into uneasy sleep, knowing that tomorrow the drum will sound again. Asterisk, drift away from the creak of the royal barge, and step inside the cool, smoky shadows of the palace kitchens. Here, the life of a servant is ruled by fire, knives, and the ever-watchful gaze of the overseer. Imagine yourself waking before the dawn, breath puffing in the dim courtyard as you haul heavy amphorae of oil and jars of honey from storerooms carved into stone. Fires must be kindled. The smell of smoke and singed bread clings to your skin. Your hands are calloused from pounding grain on the rough quern stones, the rhythmic rasp echoing through corridors lined with painted lotus flowers. The royal cooks bark orders as they craft lavish feasts you will never taste. Spiced duck, roast fish, baskets of pomegranates and dates, wheels of fresh cheese delicacies, laid out in gilded dishes for the Pharaoh and his court. Meanwhile, you gnaw stale flatbread stolen in a moment of carelessness, always fearful of discovery. Heat curls your hair. Sweat drips from your brow as you fan the open hearths with woven palm fronds. You watch the stews bubble in copper cauldrons, skimming off the scum with a carved wooden ladle. The hum of life in the palace is constant. Scribes coming to collect dishes, guards shuffling past in bronze helmets, cats prowling for scraps that drop to the flagstones. If a dish is spoiled, too cold, too bland, the blame falls squarely on you. The overseer's staff strikes quick and hard, a reminder that the Pharaoh's table must be perfect. When the feast is done, you gather greasy plates. Wash them in basins of cold water until your fingers wrinkle and crack. And yet, in the hush of the kitchens, a stolen taste. A fig here, a pinch of honey there, reminds you that even a palace slave can savor sweetness for a heartbeat. Then, the clatter of pots returns, and you melt back into the smoke and shadows once more. Asterisks slip quietly from the heat of the kitchens to the darker corners of the palace courtyard, where the smell of sweet, yeasty mash drifts on the breeze. Here you are, a brewer's apprentice, your back bent beneath the burden of ancient tradition and daily toil. Each day begins before the stars have fled. You grind emmer grain by hand, the rough stones chewing your palms raw. You feel the grain turn warm beneath your fingers as you pour water into the vat, the beginnings of beer, the drink of workers, nobles, and gods alike. The air is thick with steam. You stir the mash with a carved wooden paddle, careful not to let it scorch. A single mistake, too much water, too little yeast, a moment of carelessness, and the entire brew may sour, earning you your master's fury. The clay jars stand in rows like silent guards, each one stoppered with fresh rushes. As you lift one to your lips, tasting the froth, you wonder if the Pharaoh's servants who pour it at feasts will ever think of the hands that made it. Your fingernails are rimmed with chaff, your tunic damp with sweat and spilled mash. You ladle out the sweet, unfiltered beer into jars lined with date palm fibers, a trick to keep it clear. Then you stack the jars onto reed mats to ferment under the sun's relentless glare. In the stillness, you hear the distant rhythm of drums and flutes from the palace's inner court. You dream of slipping away to taste honeyed beer from a noble's cup instead of this sour mash meant for the work crews. But your place is here, by the vats, with your nose full of malt and your skin sticky from the grain. Tomorrow, the brew must flow again. The river of labor that keeps the palace alive. Now follow the narrow, shaded corridor that leads into the great audience hall and see yourself as an ostrich feather fan bearer, a symbol of royal status, yet a servant all the same. Your bare feet whisper over polished stone floors as you walk backward, always facing the Pharaoh, never turning your back on the living god. The fan is taller than you are, long plumes bound to a carved wooden handle. Each feather is stripped from the handle. Mighty birds hunted far beyond the Nile's bend. You feel the tickle of the down brushing your shoulder. The weight of it strains your wrists, your forearms ache, but you must not falter. Your job is to keep the king cool as he receives petitions, hears disputes, and nods in solemn judgment beneath the canopy of lotus-painted beams. Sometimes your eyes wander to the golden sandals of a vizier, to the curls of a noblewoman's wig glinting with beeswax. But each time you drift, the head scribes read. Pen scratches a warning on his papyrus. Your mistakes noted in the hush of the hall. At night, you dream of the fan's soft rustle, the dust that clings to the feathers, the endless swirl of scented air you must create. The others call you honored, but your shoulders grow knotted like the ropes that bind the barges. When the king rises, so do you, lifting the fan higher, waving it in long, graceful arcs, a human breeze in a world where your worth is measured in the stillness you stir. You wonder, now and then, if the Pharaoh ever notices your face, or if you're just another drifting shadow beneath his gaze. Picture yourself now in the hush before a festival feast, an apprentice harpist waiting in the carved alcove of the palace's grand banquet hall. You sit cross-legged beside your master, a thin man whose fingers dance like reeds in the Nile. Wind, your harp, shaped like a boat's prow, rests across your knees, 7 taut strings humming at your touch. Its wood is fragrant with resin. Rubbed smooth by the countless songs that came before your own, you hear the laughter of courtiers drifting in, the rustle of silk robes, the clink of alabaster goblets. Incense curls around the pillars, mixing with the scent of roast duck and honey cakes stacked high on low tables. When the overseer lifts his staff, you begin, fingers plucking gently, a lullaby that weaves through the chatter. A river of sound meant to soothe and charm, but the notes must flow without pause. Each chord played as if you've never known hunger, heat, or the ache that creeps into your knuckles after hours of bowing to the strings. Your eyes scan the guests, the flick of the high priest's ringed fingers, a tilt of a noblewoman's head heavy with perfume cones melting down her braided hair. A single wrong note might offend a priest's ears, or worse, the Pharaoh's own. Your master hums along in time, eyes half closed, reminding you to match. His rhythm, to hide your stumbles in the flow of ancient hymns dotting the garden beyond. The full moon rises, silvering the sycamore trees, but you do not see it. Your world is this hollowed wood, this drone of strings, this endless hope that your next performance will bring a silver bangle for your mother's wrist, a linen wrap for your father's. Bones, some small comfort to carry you through another night in the echoing halls of feast. Asterisk, imagine now you are crouched low in a narrow rock-cut chamber, torchlight flickering shadows across the unfinished walls of a nobleman's tomb. You are a tomb painter's apprentice, no grand sculptor or priest, but a patient, careful servant to the gods of pigment and time. Your reed brush is no thicker than a blade of grass. You dip it in a shallow shell palette, crushed malachite for green, ochre for red, soot for the deepest black. Your master watches from a bench. Behind you, his eyes half-lidded from the sweet haze of resin incense burning in a small clay pot. Outside, the desert wind moans through the valley, but down here, the air is heavy with dust and the warmth of human breath, the hush broken only by the soft scratch of brush on limestone. You copy scenes older than your own bones, the noblemen feasting forever, papyrus marshes where birds wait to be snared, hieroglyphic prayers to guide the soul past the jaws of the devour, that your knees ache from crouching. Your eyes water in the torch smoke, but each figure must be perfect. Each line must flow as if the god Thoth himself steadies your hand. A crooked leg or sloppy glyph might dishonor the dead, or anger your master, whose stick taps your shoulder. When your lines grow uneven, your mind drifts to the offering bread your mother packed for you, wrapped in scraps of linen. You wonder if the nobleman's family will remember your name when they lay the final stone dot, or if you'll fade like the brushstrokes you lay down, sealed behind the tomb door forever, your labor hidden in the hush where the dead dream. Asterisk. Imagine you have risen through the ranks, yet even here in this ancient land, your burden only grows heavier. You are now an overseer, a middle servant, caught between the Pharaoh's demands and the exhausted laborers who bend their backs in the blazing sun at dawn. You stride through the workers' village near the royal necropolis. You carry a slender staff of authority, a carved stick that means you may punish slackers, yet every swing leaves you hollow inside. Your linen kilt is crisp, your shaved scalp glistens with the morning heat. But your heart pounds when you hear whispers of discontent. There is never enough. Beer rations. Never enough bread for the families back home. You keep the daily records on scraps of pottery sherds, each man's name, each absence, each measure of grain owed. The scribes at the temple trust you, but the men you command eye you with quiet hatred when you dock their wages for slow work or failed quotas. When the sun reaches its cruel zenith, you stand on a rocky rise, squinting down at the quarry pit. The clang of copper chisels against limestone echoes up to you. You wipe sweat from your brow, but your mouth is dry as the desert. You know the Pharaoh expects the tomb to rise swiftly, for every block laid late is an offense to the gods, and an offense to your standing. At night, you sit alone in your small hut, the oil lamp guttering. Your staff leans against the door, not quite a symbol of power now, but a reminder that you are both master and prisoner of this endless cycle of labor, fear, and the impossible will of a living God. Asterisk, as the moon waxes full, the city hums with preparation for a great festival, one of the countless feasts that honor the gods and uphold Madate, the sacred balance. You, a trusted servant, find yourself swept into the frenzy that precedes the rituals. You must oversee the storing of the best cuts of meat, the pressing of dates and figs into sweet pastes, and the drawing of water from deep wells by torchlight in the courtyard of the temple. Other servants hurry with baskets of onions, leeks, and fish, all arranged as offerings for the deity who watches over the Nile's bounty. You slip between them, checking each jar for spoilage, mindful that to waste food is to invite divine displeasure and your overseer's wrath. When the day of celebration arrives, you stand along the processional route. Trumpets blare in the distance. The high priests chant words, older than any scribe can write. The people's cheers wash over you as the sacred bark, the god's boat, glides past on the shoulders of white-robed priests. You feel pride swell in your chest, but also fear. If the offerings are insufficient or the rituals flawed, it is you who will bear the blame in the unseen realm, as well as this one. By dusk, your feet ache from hours of standing watchful. Behind the temple, you kneel to scrub the limestone floor. Of spilled wine and scattered petals, the echoes of drums fading into the night. The festival is over, but your service is never done. Tomorrow, the ledgers must be balanced again. The storerooms must be refilled, and you must find your place once more in the grand, endless cycle that binds you, servant to a pharaoh, servant to a god. Asterisk, dawn barely touches the tips of the palm trees when you're roused from restless sleep. Today, you are not just a servant, you are a messenger, trusted to carry the pharaoh's words from the palace to a noble's estate far beyond the city walls. You slip your feet into worn sandals, tucking the sealed papyrus scroll inside a linen pouch strapped securely to your chest. There is no guard to escort you, no chariot to ease your journey. You will walk alone on sun-hardened roads that snake through dusty fields and past scattered farms. Each mile you tread brings new hazards. Jackals watch from the scrubland, their eyes glinting in the dawn's first light. The air grows hotter with every step, shimmering waves that bend the horizon and make the distant hills look like shifting mirages. When you pass through small villages, watchful eyes follow you. A slip of the tongue, a moment's distraction, and the scroll could be stolen, and your life forfeit for losing the pharaoh's message. By noon, your mouth is dry as the desert wind. You stop under a lone acacia tree, clutching a clay jar of water you bartered for at the last village. Drink must last the rest of the road. Finally, the estate walls appear, sun-bleached mud brick rising behind an orchard of sycamore figs. You bow low at the gate, presenting your token of the palace seal. Servants lead you into a shaded courtyard, where your message is read aloud by a scribe, his coal-lined eyes flicking over the words. No word of thanks is offered for your perilous journey, only a curt nod and a copper ring pressed into your hand. You tuck it away, already bracing yourself for the return path through the sweltering dust. Pharaoh's servant may carry his master's voice across miles of sunburnt land, but your own voice is swallowed by silence. Asterisk, the hush of dawn has long since lifted when a runner appears at the servants' quarters, breathless, eyes wide with urgency. The high priest at the temple has summoned you, and there is no refusing. Your feet carry you through the temple's monumental gates. Past columns painted with lotus and papyrus blooms, incense drifts through the air in thick, sweet clouds, clinging to your linen tunic as you enter the vast, shadowed hall where gods dwell in carved stone. Inside, the high priest stands before a gilded shrine, his shaven head glinting in the flickering light of oil lamps. You bow so low your forehead nearly brushes the cold flagstones. He gestures, and 2 temple guards step forward. They place heavy baskets at your feet, offerings for the sacred festival that must be delivered before dusk to the hidden crypt beneath the sanctuary. Each basket is filled with delicate items, amulets wrapped in linen, painted figurines of falcons and sacred scarabs, bowls of honey and figs. Your hands tremble as you lift them. One misstep, one broken offering, and the priest's fury could doom your family for generations. You slip down narrow corridors. Behind the temple, your sandals brushing centuries-old hieroglyphs etched into the sandstone. A sudden gust makes the oil lamp flicker, your shadow dancing like a phantom on the wall. When you reach the crypt, cool darkness swallows you. Here, only priests and chosen servants may tread, a realm between the living and the gods. You place each offering in precise order, whispering prayers you barely understand. When the task is done, you return to the priest's side, heart pounding in your ribs. He does not praise you. His eyes slide over you as though you were stone. Yourself, another faceless servant in a palace of gods and mortals. Outside, the setting. Sun ignites the temple's columns in hues of gold and crimson. Your own life, by contrast, remains a quiet flicker, easily snuffed out. If the gods ever find your service wanting, night descends softly over the palace grounds. The distant hum of the Nile merges with the rustle of date palms swaying in the warm breeze. You've done all that was asked of you today. The sweeping, the carrying, the prayers, the errands at the temple. Yet your body feels like it's carrying a mountain's weight. Every bone weary with duty. You slip away from the servants' quarters, just before your overseer's watchful eye can stop you. Outside, the air tastes different, less heavy, scented with blossoms that open only when the sun sleeps. Fireflies drift like tiny embers through the courtyard gardens, where stone statues of lions and falcons stand guard in the moonlight. You find your favorite hidden corner, a low wall overlooking the dark waters of the canal. There, you sit on the worn stones, legs dangling, linen tunic gathering dust. Gaze drifts upward, beyond the swaying fronds. The stars are scattered across the velvet sky, the same constellations that watched over your grandparents and their grandparents before them. You think of the Pharaoh, asleep now in his cool chamber, protected by a retinue of guards, priests, and the unspoken fear that binds the kingdom together. You think of the grand halls and the sun-dappled gardens where you walk only to serve, never to rest for a moment. You let your mind drift far from the palace walls. You imagine yourself on a boat, drifting down the Nile, reeds whispering secrets along the shore. You imagine freedom, no lash of the overseer's voice, no heavy baskets, no flickering oil lamps burning long past sunset. But dawn will come soon enough, and the temple bells will call you back. Now you hold this moment close, the hush of the water, the hush of your own breath, the hush of a life that serves in silence. And when you finally stand, brushing the dust from your tunic, you carry that starlight with you, a secret ember in the heart of a Pharaoh's obedient servant. So now you drift back from these chambers and gardens, from the dusty courtyards and the flickering torchlight that once guided the feet of those who served in silence. You've walked the polished corridors and stood in the shadows behind gilded thrones. You've carried water from the river, swept sand from the temple steps, Whispered prayers you could only hope would be heard by gods, carved in stone. You've glimpsed the burdens that clung to every linen, sleeve, and the small sparks of humanity that survived under the weight of duty. A hidden smile, a stolen moment. Beneath the stars, a breeze that smelled of freedom, if only for a heartbeat. Now, let your mind grow soft again. Listen for the hush of the Nile's current as it carries away the noise of the palace. Imagine the soft sand under your feet, the moon climbing higher above ancient date palms. The distant beat of drums fades, and the flicker of oil lamps becomes just a dream you're free to leave behind. When you wake, the world will be different. No overseer's lash, no call at dawn, no heavy urns or temple corridors. Only the warmth of your own bed, the familiar walls around you, the comfort of knowing that you are no longer bound by the sacred but suffocating rituals of a pharaoh's house. Sleep now, dear listener. Leave the secrets of the past tucked behind temple doors and desert dunes. The servants have put out their lamps, the gods have closed their eyes, and the hush of history waits quietly until you're ready to dream again.